folks, they've been screwing us all over. And by they, I mean the elite news organizations that formerly reached 40, 50 million people a day when I was growing up and into adulthood. Now much less, but there's a lot of offshoots from them in smaller operations that are still carrying the same deceit daily. So what I'm talking about is ABC News, NBC, and CBS, the formerly only three go-to places for national news every night, 7 nights a week. And they were lying back then, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. Cable came along in the 70s at some point, but no news came along. CNN was the first competitor. I don't know when they started, 88 maybe, just guessing a little bit here. Fox News was 95. And they were really giving it to the whole country in the butt back then. Only nobody knew. People had suspicions. The conservative movement was books and Christian radio. That was about it. Some local people here and there on the radio talking common sense, saying, you know, what the hell are they doing in Hollywood and in D.C.? But the movement really began to reach the masses and give a place to coalesce around. You have to say, really, much as it might sound a little silly, with Rush Limbaugh. And that was 88, I guess. Reagan's last year. Then we got to find out, I did before that because of Christian talk radio, but the country on a much larger scale, and me, learned more from it, got to find out how many of us thought alike and were against the rapid changes to our culture. And this is before anybody knew. And most people, I've been trying to teach people this for 4 or 5 years. Some others are figuring it out. Not that many even now. Before people even knew that they were deliberately sending a tidal wave of immigrants into America. A tidal wave, which now accounts for a more than 100 million increase in the population since the year I entered high school from immigrants. People still don't know that, but they knew what Hollywood was doing, and they knew that the homosexual movement, at smaller numbers more now, knew that it wasn't just rights for people to live any way they want. It was the right of the liberal elite to take away your right to live the way you want. And the way you want may be choosing people as employees who have a moral framework the way you do, the way your Bible does. They've taken that away from you in this country. And people have been catching on more and more over the years after Limbaugh, Fox News, and other people in talk radio, Sean Hannity. I don't know how long Laura Ingram's been around, but she's got a popular show. Glenn Beck for a while until he became kind of, I don't know, Glenn Beck's going through a tough time with his life. To become a Mormon in itself makes a person wonder, what the hell are you thinking, Glenn? Yes, we all do stupid things, and me more than most, I think. But it was I just tripped over Glenn Beck for a second. I don't want to do it without trying to show some compassion his way. And then him taking, I guess, some stuffed animals down to the border to greet the illegal immigrants not too long ago. Anyway, but he was a voice, a big voice on the right, at least in the year 2000 and for a ways after that. It's gotten bigger, this movement. It was just grumbling in auto shops before. But now there's voices, and the internet, of course, made it so that the masses they don't have to call in to talk radio. They can now talk to each other, create their own voices that reach out, and that's when we saw InfoWars and like Stephen Molyneux, Paul Joseph Watson, who's younger, but these are people who are gathering tens, hundreds of thousands of their own audiences. It's really grown, and it's big. Goes back to this idea of what the hell's going on with racism. It ended a long time ago. White racism, and I'm not sure really how awful it was then, but I do know back then there was black racism that was never ever reported, as it's never reported today. And I'm talking 1968, when there was plenty of black racism, and I saw it, that I was beat up by blacks, that I was harassed on the streets by blacks while living in Ohio. 68, folks, you know, that's like the year of the rioting, the 65, 60, in those years, massive rioting in Los Angeles, Chicago, elsewhere. Nobody was reporting about black racism back then, yet I saw it for myself on the streets. So how much white racism there was in the 60s, that this was this terrible thing in the South with Klan members or whatever, and how much even back then was being hushed up about black racism in the media, we don't know. Because now everybody's got a camera, and we have YouTube, which is censoring conservative voices, but for the last few years it's allowed the ability for people to upload incidents of racist blacks beating innocent white people. So we've really seen that, and knowing the media will never report those. And I'm talking the national media. You get some of them local, yes, Philadelphia station, but it will not be picked up by the New York stations and broadcast to every city in America, like every incident of white racism is broadcast. Back then in the 60s, this thing, because it's still being reported today like Whitey's racist, Whitey, racist. It's still being reported today. And think back about what they do about the South in the 60s and all the racism they talk about. Who's to say that 90% of what's called white racism today, and possibly back then, wasn't just white people saying, what about the racist blacks? You know, our friends get beat up. I've been beat up. You know, this whole thing of pinning this terrible worldwide stigma on the United States for the white racism, I'm looking at it right now and seeing it as a 100% lie in 2017. And I am postulating that in 1960s, it might have been a 95% lie then, too. It might have been just people going, you know what, we're sick of our friends getting tormented and beat up by blacks. The media can use that word because you start talking down blacks who are violent, who are more criminal. It may well be that people were just trying to complain about something that was very legitimate to complain about. Right now, we watch it. When you complain about blacks, I call them the professional liars at CBS, ABC, NBC, the big ones. NPR, also very big. And then the smaller entities, Comedy Central, who's become an echo chamber for ABC, NBC, and CBS. Some other things like that out there, feeding deceit daily to the masses. Right now, if a white person complains and it's caught on camera somewhere about blacks, they will twist that out, and they will never say that he's worried because blacks are violent and they're dangerous and they're scaring people and they're stealing from people. They won't report that part out of New York into every city in America. They'll just, if it got violent, let's say, they'll just report that a couple of words that made it sound racist, like this thing that happened in Virginia yesterday. We haven't seen how that's going to pan out yet. It wasn't even black people hurt, for one thing, but they were able to associate the driver of the Dodge Challenger with what they're calling a white supremacist group, and we'll see what his rationale was. There's already a couple of videos coming out that people were attacking his car before he did that. And he may have gotten the shit scared out of him by Antifa and Black Lives Matter. We've even got video of somebody going after his car with a pipe. But that hasn't been filtered. You're never going to get it. They're all constantly going to lie at ABC News, NBC, and CBS, and all of their little underlings, and at NPR. But the people on the internet who care about truth, this will come out in subsequent days to find out if this fellow was scared for his life. As we've known in the last year, a lot of white people beaten by Black Lives Matter. Cops murdered by Black Lives Matter associates, and people beaten by Antifa. We'll see how that shakes out. But even if it turns out that he's a racist white guy, which I'm saying is very rare, compared to racist blacks. I'm not saying blacks are spiritually inferior in general, but they've been fed these lies that Whitey has been evil to them every year. Every year they're fed that lie. So even if this guy does turn out to be a racist, which I say is rare, and I say blacks are far more likely to be racist in America, even if it does, we've seen a lot more black racism during the Donald Trump era of the last, since 2008, mid-2015. We've seen a lot more black racism that's been hushed up. But this guy, he'll have movies written about him as a racist, while dozens of violent racist blacks, some who have directly attacked people saying, "Are you a Trump supporter?" kidnapping a retarded kid, black people, where a CBS reporter went on the national news and tried to make that look like racist Trump supporters, when it was racist blacks attacking a retarded white kid, kidnapping him and torturing him. And a CBS reporter had the gall, because they know what they can get away with, to make that sound like it was racist white Trump supporters. They're that clever and bold and evil. At any rate, it's a hoax. Really, that's what it all comes down to. It is a hoax. There is no rampant racism in the United States. When slaves were owned here, there's so many lies told about that let me just go for a teeny bit here. 95% of African slaves went to other countries. The United States is known worldwide as the slavery country, but that's bullshit. That's all made up. We got 5% of the slaves. Other lies. Blacks in Africa were selling slaves, not just to really Democrats in the South. That's who was buying the slaves and defending slavery. But 95% to the rest of the world, and lots of them, you'll never hear this on the nightly news or the morning shows today, Good Morning America, a large chunk of the slaves going out of Africa were going up into Saudi Arabia and Muslim countries, buying slaves. And Muslims own slaves today. Nobody gives a crap about it, because this is all a game to turn America against its own heritage and to embarrass white people so they won't even defend themselves against this conquering of their country. A large part of it through immigration, through the massive numbers of deliberately bringing in non-white people into the country, non-Christians, deliberately for the last 50 straight years after the Immigration Act of 65. Deliberately murdering and raping this country and stealing it, stealing your birthright and giving it to people who will be good global citizens, just like Europe and other places. The Constitution is being burned. And more importantly, well, not more importantly, of somewhat similar importance is the fact that white people are getting killed on our streets. Some of them beaten over and over and over again, and it's gonna keep going because of the media injecting hatred into the black population. Unjustified hatred. Blacks are 8 times more likely than whites to commit racist violence. You never hear that. on the media. So because you don't hear it, and blacks grow up and it's some sort of popular thing to not get very well educated, and a whole bunch of whites don't get enough educated to find out this stuff anyway, you've got a whole population in America, a subculture that has this little burning desire inside to take revenge on whitey. People are getting hurt and killed, and the evil people are teaching the bad guys to not see their sin of evil, of violence, of resentment, and their ignorance of allowing themselves to be lied to so easily. And they're coming out and attacking white Christians because the elite want Christians to get the hell out of this country. And every country. Europe too. But they were able to dissolve Christianity in Europe without this racism game and without the tidal wave of immigration until recently. They weren't able to dissolve Christianity in America because it started as a Protestant, which is real Bible believers, not Catholicism, which the Protestants were leaving the old world or Europe to come here. So America became a Protestant country, and these are people that are real, in a lot of cases, really into understanding God, not through some priest who's violating the actual Bible by having people call him Father and by saying he has the ability to forgive sins. Catholicism is a mess, and how the heck did they ever end up praying to Mary? Weird. But that may have been why Catholicism, and therefore what might be loosely called Christianity in Europe, died, because of the power that probably remained there of Catholicism, whereas we had people that were closer to understanding and living the truth of the gospel in the United States. And maybe that's why America stood for so long resisting this global New World Order. Longer. We're a mess now because of immigration, because of the cultural changes, Hollywood, and getting into the kids in the schools and changing them. Even Christian parents sending their schools to government, what I call deceit factories, that teach atheist Marxism. A lot of them don't even think about it, I suppose. Everybody goes to public school. It's evil schools. That's what's going on there. At any rate, we're a mess, and we've been a mess because the kids of good Christians are growing up stupid. They're getting fed deceit in schools all day long for 16 years, if you count college. We're bound to be a mess, right? We're kind of almost gone. Largely because you can fix a lot of things. You could fix the schools, you could fix the welfare, but you can't kick 100 million people out of the country that you've legally let in. The increase in the population since 1970 census, it's really 120, based on immigration, because America in when was it? 1970? Yeah, it was in 1970. The birth rate was, and the chart of our population at 203 million was peaking. So it was only going to go up for another half dozen years, maybe 5 years, and then it was heading down. We would have not gotten much above 203 million. Now we're at like 320, 325. Therefore, I put the pieces together and say that's when massive immigration started, and I say that was the beginning of the tidal wave to alter our culture in a place that brought us here to the point that you can't kick that 120 million people out. Therefore, you've got permanent wounds, disability, like a leg cut off and stuff from what America used to be. You're never going to get that back. Yet there is a fight of the people that have grown up in this talk radio movement and this ability to reach each other through the internet, started to see how much has been taken away from us, how much we've been lied to. Evil Democrat traitors, the things they've been doing. And I would say well over half of the Republican Party are Democrats in drag, posing as conservatives. Well over half. So we're getting screwed by both parties, and it was all facilitated, all engineered, all made to happen through the voices that tell America what to think every day. Even now, in this age, when we're filled with talk radio, Fox News, and the internet, if CBS, ABC, NBC go on a tirade calling Donald Trump something, some terrible thing, a racist for one thing, calling G.W. Bush something, whatever it is they go on a tirade about for 3 days, their voice is still so powerful and so pervasive that Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck and everybody on Fox News, Bill O'Reilly, who's now gone from Fox News, but he's still got a voice and he's speaking up, Alex Jones, all the people out there, Sean Hannity, they are talking that day about the latest giant smear campaign against a Republican being conducted on ABC, NBC, CBS, NPR, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. They all echo each other. MTV, Comedy Central. It's a complete, it's a circuit of same-speak. They're still powerful enough that when I turn on the radio and they're trashing Donald Trump for something, I turn on the radio and listen to Rush Limbaugh or anybody else I turn to, Hugh Hewitt, Tammy Bruce, Larry Elder, I'm going to hear what's being reported on ABC, NBC, and CBS. I'm going to hear the truth about it, but the power of their smear campaigns and their evil, their ability to turn the whole country thinking Whitey is racist, is still sufficient that wherever I turn, I hear it when they go on one. And they've been on like 2 a week, mostly against Trump, for the last 2 years. So it's exhausting when a Republican is president. It's exhausting. Everything gets quiet when a Democrat's president, because Barack Obama can commit treason in Libya and in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood. Hillary Clinton can sell out illegal sales to Ukraine and things with Russia, even though they're blaming Donald Trump for Russia. Barack Obama can use the IRS against his enemies. We're talking stuff 10 times worse than Richard Nixon and Watergate. But it's still quiet in the news when these Democrats are selling out their country and lying and committing treason. And in the case of Bill Clinton, very possibly raping Juanita Broderick, along with sexually assaulting several other women who publicly spoke out. But it was all quiet and smooth and wonderful and la-di-da at ABC, NBC, and CBS during every one of those episodes of Democrats getting caught, committing their crap against this country, of them lying against the people of this country, lying to their own voters, and slamming conservatives unjustifiably, still quiet because a Democrat's president. So it's exhausting when a Republican's president, and they've been, far more slamming Trump than they ever did G.W. Bush. They've been on this racism thing. Everything else too. Russia, total crap. Russia not only had no collusion with Donald Trump, but Russia did not hack the DNC servers at all. Seth Rich did it. He put a thumb drive into the damn thing, and then he gave the data to Julian Assange at WikiLeaks. That's exactly what happened, and Seth Rich was murdered a few days later. A murder that is not being investigated and is actually getting people kicked off of liberal places like Twitter and other sites, Facebook, for even talking about it, because the power of the professional liars in the elite media and the Democrat, the voices are so loud that they managed to get a lot of the population thinking it was terrible, it was tormenting the parents to talk about Seth Rich. So they've got the power to stop a murder investigation. Endless things to slam Donald Trump with. Russia did not hack our election. 17 intel agencies never agreed on a damn thing. It was one small group of people who sat together and worked on who hacked the election, but they never even got the DNC servers. So the investigation wasn't proper. Hillary Clinton wasn't, or nobody from the DNC was interviewed under oath. They didn't even try for an investigation. They just all said, let's say Russia hacked. It wasn't 17, it was a small group, and it was 2 liars. James Brennan from the CIA under Obama, and what's that other creep's name? From Defense National, whatever it is. National Security, not advisor, but it's something else. The overseer over all the intel, FBI and CIA. Clapper. That's it. Okay. James Clapper, I guess it was. All colluding, and with Comey from the FBI, colluding to lie and pass off this deceit that Donald Trump has done something wrong and that Russia hacked the election. There's nobody else. There's no 17 intel agencies. There's not even 3 intel agencies. There's 3 people put in charge by the corrupt Marxist, global Marxist, race-baiting, traitorous liar, Barack Obama. 3 people who were willing to go on national television and appear before the Senate and lie to the country in saying that 17 agencies, or in saying that Russia, according to their findings, their estimates, hacked our election. It didn't happen, and they know damn well it didn't happen. And so do a lot of other people, but certainly nobody that gets news from CNN or ABC News or NPR is going to hear about it. It's a open and shut case. It's done. Russia did not hack the election. The evidence is in. It's not opinion. If they can do that to Donald Trump, you can see that they can do anything. And they can continue with this racism hoax, turning the country against the white man, getting innocent people killed, scaring people, the whole country. Whites are afraid to walk down the streets in black neighborhoods because they've turned that group into a hostile force based on feeding them the lie that they don't get a fair shot in America. Whereas in the real world, for the last 50 years, whites cannot get a fair shot because blacks are given preference in hiring and in school admissions. So they're able to take the compass and turn it in a 180-degree direction, take the people who are getting superior treatment, and convince them that they're getting cheated. It's astounding, and it's evil. It's fascinating to watch. Somebody needs to get out here and say this. I've been doing some racism videos showing black racism, violent black racism, unreported acts, and comparing them with these media feeding frenzies, this craziness whenever they think they can blame some white person for an act of what they will call racism. I've been doing some stuff on it, but we need something that just hits this right straight head on. The great American racism hoax. It is a hoax. We're not the country to blame for historical racism. We're the country that went to war against Democrats to set the slaves free. We're the only country that went to war against anybody to set the slaves free. We're a good country. And blacks owned slaves in America also. Black is not a superior moral color in this life. And blacks owned and sold slaves in Africa. So it's just one other time when they're able to get really the entire planet thinking that America is uniquely racist, and most notably the white man in America, whereas everybody, almost every race has been a slave, including whites, including Jews. Egyptians held slaves. The Babylonians held slaves. The Muslims are holding slaves right now, and there's slaves in other places. Africans held slaves. Nobody cares about other slavery, historically, or slavery going on right now. This is a psyop. It's a device to use in weakening a country on the road to conquering it. And it's worked. I've been saying it for a few years, mostly because of immigration, but this racism thing's a very, very big deal too. I've been saying it that we're in intensive care as a country, and we're never going to recover right. Intensive care, and if possibly getting the country back, which is highly doubtful all by itself, even though sort of fun fighting, and it's interesting, and on a spiritual level, it's weird to watch, what could be biblical events unfold. The country's never going to recover. But it might come. It could reach a point of living in truth to an extent. Again, it could. I don't know. You've got Black Lives Matter and Antifa, Marxists, racist blacks. In the case of Black Lives Matter, beating the shit out of innocent white people in the streets. That doesn't get reported. White people who almost never do anything racist or violent against a black, getting blamed all across the planet for being racist. I don't see how, even with the voices we've got on the right now, I don't see how there's any likelihood that America can survive, because Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, Google owned YouTube right now, are closing accounts and taking people down. Twitter took me down. Twitter suspended me for 12 hours today. They won't tell you why, but I was fighting this racism crap from the media elite. And that may have been it. Lee Stranahan, 10 years of work, former Breitbart reporter, kicked off of YouTube without warning today. Silk, and what are the couple of interesting black ladies? Diamond and Silk. Demonetized. Steve Molyneux demonetized. Paul Joseph Watson demonetized. Many other conservative voices demonetized. Others being kicked off. Some kicked off Twitter. Milo was kicked off Twitter. I was warned once on YouTube a few months ago. We're not winning. You see that? They identified where this noise was coming from that got Donald Trump elected, and they have been sending out the tanks very effectively, I should add. Alex Jones says he's lost, I think he said, 90% of his revenue due to demonetization on YouTube. Several hundred thousands of dollars, I believe, is the figure he was using. This is big, because people will then have to go get jobs somewhere else. And it's very smart. First of all, you turn most of the country, all of the liberal whites, and some of the conservative whites against the patriots by lying and injecting this crazy, insane accusation of racism. Racism isn't even anything like the worst thing going on in this country. Really, when you look at the treason in politics, the feeding of deceit to the masses through the network news, the feeding of moral corruption to the masses through Hollywood, the forcing of people to hire others who are sinning, the first time in American history that anybody was forced, that a law was passed forcing the citizenry to hire somebody committing what is considered in the Bible a sin. Homosexuality. I'm not railing on homosexuality here, but from a historical standpoint, it should be noted that never has it been done before that courts said, here's a person sinning according to the Bible, and you have to hire him, and you have to rent a house to him, or an apartment, even right next to your, where your kids live, or whatever, if you own one and you rent it out. Where was I with that? I don't know. I probably lose that exact direction. I think I got it. They're getting us. Through the courts, through the ownership of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, others, owned by liberals, hypocrite liberals who let liberal members get away with crap that they even less done wrong, even less harsh voices from conservatives are kicked off, shut down, called hate speech for merely telling the truth. I think you're looking at a significant damage right now to the conservative movement, thanks to social media shutting people down, thanks to Fox News getting afraid at this point to report truth. Donald Trump, who does not know how to fight against trained liars, nor does anybody he has working for him know how to fight very well against trained liars. I could do a better job as an amateur in the art of debate against these trained liars, the reporters at ABC, NBC, and CBS, the guests that go on CNN and MSNBC. I could do better than them, even though some of them are very impressive with their ability to dodge questions, their knowledge about certain things, and know how to change the topic and deflect and turn the attack around. But they're easy to beat if you know how, even though some of those people have maybe in areas more historical knowledge of history than me. I don't have to argue history with them because they're liars, and it's very easy to catch them in their lies to turn it back on them, and then just jump right off of Donald Trump and say, well, let's talk about what you said after this terrible thing done by a Democrat, and just turn the table around and don't even argue with them. Don't play their argument at all. Turn the blame on them and make them defend themselves. That's the key for Donald Trump to learn, or to hire somebody who knows how to do it, but he has never done that. He's got people like Sean Spicer and Kellyanne Conway, others, Stephen Miller. They're brave and they'll stand up and fight the media, but they don't win when they do it. So it's damaging to them. Nobody cheers. Well, some people cheer a little, but that's only diehard fans. The liberal media does not feel defeated at all when they're attacked by Donald Trump because he's not effective. He's clumsy, and all the people he has working for him are not either effective. It would be nice if he'd hire somebody and then this fight could go on, but he's not doing it. So there's nobody nationally doing it. Nobody's standing up against this hoax, this racism hoax that's blaming innocent white people for a delusion of a so-called big white racism problem here, while hushing up an actual racism problem from blacks and from many Hispanics, also injected into that community by lying about history and lying about their own government, purposely damaging this country. Voices being shut down right now. Well, it's all happening so fast. We'll see where it goes, because there's a competitor to Twitter that just opened up called Gab. I've gone over there. It is not as technically good of a site. Does not have anywhere near the numbers, the voices, but if you get kicked off Twitter, it's giving you a place where you can go somewhere else. We haven't seen anything great video-wise yet, but there's a couple out there where I've got some things uploaded, and I see people more popular than me uploading some stuff, getting a few views. As more get kicked off of these sites, they'll probably begin growing a new voice. But you know what'll happen is, let's just say, let me think of one. Let's say VidMe, okay? Let's say conservatives start going to VidMe, and it grows for a bit, becomes a murmur that people can hear. Some Marxist billionaire, maybe Google, maybe Facebook, maybe Microsoft, maybe somebody without a known name, will buy it. That's what'll happen. You buy VidMe, pay twice what it's worth, so the owner will say, well, yeah, I'm going to take the $87 million or whatever, right? And boom, then you start getting rid of the conservative voices. I don't know if we stand a chance, and part of the reason is our side is really less than 1% of conservatives get out, get up. 1% is way too big of a number. 1 in 1,000 conservatives, maybe less than that, ever probably once have gotten up and went out on the street to protest something political. So the people are putting, the Christians and the conservatives are putting their own kids into deceit factories that teach atheist Marxism and lie about history, the history of slavery. They lie about human sexuality. They lie about the science of evolution. But our side is sending their kids to those schools. It's hard to say we got a chance, and they want to fight because it's right. Maybe anybody wants to fight against liars, and it's a spiritual level. They're demonic. They seem demonic. They're evil. But I don't know that there's any point in it because it's so damn powerful. How could they have gotten that powerful? Those voices that can get the whole country talking about whatever they're railing on that day. And they're always railing against the same side, the non-liberal side. Liberals are protected. You can get away with all sorts of crap if you're a liberal. But anything you do wrong, the slightest amount, if you're a conservative, and you don't even always really have to do something wrong, if they can just twist it to make it look like you did, like Russia with Donald Trump, they will go on a rampage and turn liberal airheads, teenagers and people in their 20s, out to vote for Democrat traitors. Is it worth it? Fighting when they have that much power and we aren't even trying hard enough on our side, except for this, this phenomenon of the voices on the right that are being shut down now. I don't know if we have a chance, and should, with it that powerful, is it worth, part of me goes, Randall, this is a spiritual force. This is satanic. It's heading toward the end times. It could not have been this powerful, fooled this many people, 60 million people, getting 60 million Americans out to vote for a traitor. Twice in a row, Obama and then Hillary Clinton. That's power, dude. Because those are mostly people who care about justice and things like that. They don't even know that they're carrying water for the bad guys. And they're made to think that the good guys are bad. That's power. It's stunning crap, ain't it? Wow. So I tell myself that power can't be stopped by somebody like me. Not by praying, I don't think. People have been praying since I turned to Christian talk radio, and when was that? Like 85 or something. People have been praying and praying and praying. We've gotten a lot worse since then. Well, in my case, I just struggle with the whole thing. Where, just sit back and watch it. But if you sit back and watch weeds grow, what happens? So, we're stuck on this planet, and there's this conflict. Obviously, you're going to pull the weeds or water the trees or the things that you need to do, feed your pets. But to get political, that's a form of weeds growing when liars come up around you. And we know examples from the Bible, John the Baptist and Elijah and others that stood up against political power. Some like, what was her name? Ruth. No, not Ruth. The one in Persia. Esther. I think it was Esther. Stood up and appealed to the king. We know Bible examples of it being okay for people to stand up in the political world. Were they called and they're the only ones who should? Well, we were never told not to get involved, and it's like cleaning up weeds. In the United States, at least, you're supposed to become an informed citizen and help steer the ship of state. So there's the rationale for getting involved, even in a losing battle. People are sending their children to deceit factories. Innocent whites are getting beat up in the streets by an epidemic of black racism that's being carried out in the name of revenge for something that didn't happen, because whites have not been treating them badly any more than blacks have been treating whites badly for the last 50 to 100 years. You think that, it's hard not to say, all right, I'm a citizen, I've got to get in here and help. I do struggle with it. And I need something to do anyway. With my brain, I like intellectual fights when it's a real reason. There's a bad guy. I used to fight everybody just to get them to think my way about practically anything. I'm really, hopefully, a whole lot distant from that type of arrogant person today and argumentative. I don't have the energy for fighting so much anymore, regardless. But I do get extra energy inside me, as a lot of people do, when you know you're being lied to, and the lies aren't little. they're evil and they're getting people hurt and killed, country conquered, children lied to in schools. You get this adrenaline. A lot of people do, they throw things at the TV or whatever, they write letters. It's in all of us. But I don't know how many of them, like me, see how damaged the country is, followed by how unlikely it is to recover. Knowing what I do I keep going? It's like, okay, I'll go pick up the weeds, but hey, we're not even going to be living here next month, and they're just going to let the land go back to nature. Why would I pick weeds for the last month before moving? It's not being sold to anybody. It's just going to go back to nature. The trees on the property won't be watered. They'll die. Why bother with anything? There's a certain efficiency of just giving up when you have the ability, I believe, like anybody who's seen what I've seen, and I'm not the only one, but we're a small number, that there's probably no hope of getting this country out of the mess that it's in. Having said that, this great American racism hoax, this anti-white racist violence going on now, I don't want to stay shut up for that. Because I don't hear anybody else. There are some people complaining about the double standard, that's for sure. InfoWars, some people once in a while on Fox News, but nobody's pounding on it as the danger and the threat and the evil and the weirdness and the side of power that it all represents, like I have inside of me, and want to get it out. I want it out, even though YouTube, they hide my channel anyway. I don't have much of a voice, but if I can put it out there, then maybe somebody else will think it's worth spreading around, because nobody else is doing it in just this right way. Somebody else may do it in a better way afterward, or maybe I've even missed some treatments of it. I know that Dinesh D'Souza just did an excellent book that showed Democrat Party racism, how they founded the Klan. I knew it ahead of time. He put it into a best-selling book, and I was told it by others. There's some voices out there, but I'm not seeing it in the way that I have it in mind. This, just calling it a hoax, on an audible format, and I consider video audible also. Therefore, I'm taking another shot at it, and I also do want to do a video on teaching Donald Trump how to fight liberal media trained liars. That's the name, sort of the name of it. I might monkey around with it a little, but that's another one I want to do because it's just so pressing. The President of the United States, who might be a fairly decent guy, lied about over so many things, including the pussy grab thing, lied about, the David Duke thing, lied about, and he's the president, and it's my country, and he's screwing up because he doesn't know how to fight. I just have this burning thing to try and teach him how, a little, coach him some, and he's getting a lot of bad advice, even from some very decent conservatives. Bad advice. It's not that mine's going to be 100% perfect, but it's a technique that works. It works every time. That method of turning the fight around to these liberal reporters and pulling out stats, having them by name for every reporter that speaks up at a White House press conference. And when he says, is Donald Trump going to speak out against white nationalism? Right then you look at that reporter, you pull out his file, you say, wait a second, pull out his file, Jane, and then you pull out the file and you say, well, look, here we go. I'm showing here images of, and you go ... and these are Democrat sins or black racism or things like that, with that reporter by name, and tell him right there from the press stand podium, you didn't report any of those, Jim. You didn't report any of those, Terry, or John, So it's hard to believe you care about racism, or you care about corruption, or you care about election fraud. It's hard to believe you care about it. See, now you've changed the whole argument, right? And there's a technique, because they'll turn it around immediately. These people are very good liars. They'll turn it around immediately. There's a technique for going up to counterpunching after they hit back. It's not terribly hard, but I don't know that everybody it's more like lawyer type. It's a certain style of knowing how to argue that I've groomed over many, many years of really mostly arguing too much about stupid things. This one isn't stupid. That's another video. I have this burn to get done, and I may not. I've got others too, but my audience, with YouTube cutting me back, it makes me feel that, oh, anyway, I don't even go around in circles here. I still, even though I don't have this great presence, and it's probably good I don't, because I struggle with thinking I'm too important. If I even do the slightest thing right, and somebody goes, hey, that was cool. So I stupid, insecure struggles with ego and wanting to be accepted and liked. So maybe it's good I have a small audience. I got some. So I put it out, some people see it. A couple, 3, 5, 10, sometimes say, hey, cool, thumbs up, good job. I don't know whether any of it's worth it. But I'm not leaving this property in 2 months. The weeds are growing, and the trees need water. So there's the argument for putting in a little bit more effort. Let's do a conclusion here. It's a hoax. There is no epidemic or systemic problem of white racism in this country. Quite the opposite, if anything. They're liars. They're evil. They're clever. They're wealthy. They buy entire billion-dollar television networks. Comcast owns NBC. Disney owns ABC. Viacom might still own CBS. Whoever owns CNN, it's just been sold or being sold. And they're all run by huge globalist liberals. Facebook, Google. They're killing people. And they don't care. A retarded kid, tortured, kidnapped by blacks, racist blacks, yelling out at things against Donald Trump and against whites. We don't see no movies, no plays, no psychologists interviewed, no weeks of interviewing people who were traumatized also by it. One day, pooh, out of there. And that one day, you never heard the word racism. They just let you know that it was blacks and saying racist things, but the reporter never used the word racism in any one of those segments, where it's the first damn word that comes out of their mouths if they think they can blame something on a white person. That's our enemy. And the Democrats are their, I call them demonic worker bees. You got the voice, the preaching of demonic morality, the satanic book of morals being preached out of ABC News, NBC and CBS, NPR, quietly injecting race baiting into the daily discussions, quietly turning millions against Republicans, against Christians. That's our enemy, and they control this country. They made it up. It's a hoax. Blacks have it great here, and better than whites. Yet they're more racist than whites because they're being fed this hatred, this evil hatred, on almost a weekly basis. That they're being picked on all the time. Driving while black. Total hoax. Totally debunked in a study. Put in prison more than whites. Totally debunked when you actually do studies. But the studies don't make it onto their program. We're living completely backwards. They've made up an imaginary social situation, fed it to the masses, and they've convinced enough that they can get elections won and corrupt Supreme Court justices, circuit court judges, district court judges appointed based on the Democrat traitors they get put into the presidency and the Senate and the House. they've got us living in a bizarro world. It's an evil world too. It's not even fun like Disneyland. Racism in America as a problem, other than the unreported problem, evil of racist blacks being allowed to torment the white population. But the kind of racism they report, it's bullshit. That's all it is. It's out of the imagination of the dark side of humanity. This is 2017, and we are watching what I think is the power of evil through that movement that comes out of the voices, Scott Pelley and Katie Couric and Jake Tapper and Keith Olbermann and Robin Roberts and George Stephanopoulos, Matt Lauer and Chuck Todd. All of these smart, talented voices that sound so convincing and they sound so moral, they're spitting on the population daily for years. NPR, everybody there. That's it. That's the fountain of evil when it comes right down to it. In America, on the earth, you've got the problem with BBC and Britain. The media in Australia is corrupt. The Canadian media is corrupt. Worldwide, whoever the power brokers are doing the dark side's business, they were smart enough to buy up media worldwide and get this plan implemented. That's them. This is where it all came from. The hushed-up immigration, the hushed-up racism, the wars that they cheer. When Democrats go to war, they're cheered by the press. The revolution from the 60s. This thing where we're supposedly a melting pot and that we're a nation of immigrants, and it's just bullshit. There's no reason on this planet why a nation of 203 million people in 1970 needed to flood itself with immigrants. There's no reason. You don't need any more. 200 million people, you can get anything you want out of that population. They were able to do that to us. To have us up to 320 million now, both happening during my lifetime. A completely different, changed, crowded, low on resources, less polite country now than it was then. That's where it's all coming from. They did this to us. Don't get tricked. If you're a liberal, get free from the psyops, from the mental prison of liberalism, the lies that are fed. It's not just liberalism, it's the deceit behind it. Break free. Join us, at least for yourself. So you don't have to waste the years living in bizarro world in a lie. A lie. It's no fun living in a lie. It's not all that much fun living in the truth. It's a hell of a lot worse after you find out, you get out of the lie and you find out you just blew 5 years, 10 years of your life living in a mythical kingdom of your mind where you're a kind and caring liberal, all based on crap fed to you. Don't let them do that to you. Don't let them have you running around in a constant witch hunt for some phantom white racist, looking like an idiot, as if racism, even if it was real, it's just thinking one race is superior to another. Big deal. We got people getting killed in the streets, a couple thousand a year or some crazy number of people in Chicago, black gangs mostly, people growing up, their moms on welfare, nobody teaching truth in the school, they're getting fed the resentment, hatred, crazy amount of abortions, immigration invasion. We got Obama starting wars in Syria, in Egypt, in Libya. We have, now they're about ready to get Donald Trump into wars, Bush before him. We got, and based on lies. And Hillary Clinton covering up for possibly Bill Clinton's rape, the whole Democratic Party doing the same thing, the same people who preach and moralize as if they give a crap about any moral values when they can find a Republican doing something wrong. We got big sins
going on in this country. If we were going to go around as little preachers pointing our fingers at everybody on the planet for things that they're doing wrong on the sin meter, racism should be very low. If it was even a problem in the white community, and it ain't. But it is a problem in the black community, and it's more than just racism there, it's violence. And the deceit. Either way, it's a hoax, the way it's been reported. A big, stinking joke on America and on the world. They give it to everybody up the butt. And some of them are staying there daily to live off of the drug of feeling morally superior, being a liberal. People are getting hurt. Congressman was shot at a baseball game by a liberal nut. Liberal nuts are shooting people here and there and beating people, all thinking their side morally superior because of these pigs who run the national news networks in America. And they've taken over the schools. Other things. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We look like a bunch of idiots. With even some conservatives going, don't say that, that's racist. You know, everything's fine. Divorce is fine. Putting your kids in deceit factories is fine. Abortion is fine. But don't be a racist. It's embarrassing that we're that stupid. You get what I'm saying? It's embarrassing that we're that stupid. Decent people, to a large extent. That willing to swallow lies from people that the majority think already are untrustworthy. The news media. It's where it all comes from. These accusations of racism. I'm sure a few of the scum in the Democratic Party, they make their accusations. But those voices wouldn't go anywhere except for ABC, NBC, CBS, NPR. Those four places that combined reach 50 million people a day, and they provide an umbrella of protection for every smaller entity underneath them to echo what is being said at those four networks. And they got us. They got us. We look like idiots running around on a constant witch hunt to find the racist. What a bunch of idiots. What an enormous amount of power. That's it. Try to hear this. If you're a dumb liberal, if you're a conservative who got conned, like G.W. Bush, like Jeb Bush, like Paul Ryan, the creep, and the Speaker of the House, every time the media barks about racism, these people jump up and go, yeah, Donald Trump's racist. All lied about. Everything that's said, every piece of evidence used to accuse Donald Trump, for example, of racism, is based on deceit. But as a country, and Republicans, dancing to the deceit. The liberals and half of the conservatives. Gotta shake your head. That one. It's impressive to watch. If I can't do a dang thing about it, if I can't save one tree or get one weed pulled, those of us who are watching it feel very fortunate to be able to. It's like watching The Wizard of Oz from behind the curtain. You get to see the whole thing play out. The lies and the impact of the lies all at the same time. It's a privilege to be able to see it. It wouldn't be if everybody else could see it. Then it would just be like, hey, we all see this. But when so few see it, then it's easy to start saying, hey, this is a privilege. And I do feel fortunate for as many things as I do wrong in life, have done wrong, and in cases still do. That's one thing that really makes a lot of the days feel better, that you get to see. All right, listen, I'm just going to ramble forever talking about myself now, and the marvel of this time to be alive. It's just bullshit. Let's get over this stupid game they're pulling on us with racism. It's a flippin' hoax, and it's dangerous. Alright, that's it. It's 11:06 p.m. and I'm going to wind down now.